I thought I would introduce you to our disabled Currawong. We get quite a lot of Currawongs here in the winter, and most of them leave in the summer. And this Currawong is part of that flock, but has clearly decided to stay. But he or she has a very bad foot, so we're quite pleased to have this this Currawong choosing to stay with us over the summer.
Good morning. I'm about to start work on tidying up the leaf litter around the property, a project I alluded to a vlog or two ago now. I do it every late spring or mid to late spring. I try to get it done by mid-November at the latest, so that the property is nice and tidy before bushfire season starts. But before I do that, I wanted to show you an innovation I've made in the wood store. As you may or may not know, Will and I had intended here to build essentially a shed within a shed. So we were going to put up a wall and have a lockable door, and then behind that would be expensive equipment like our chainsaws, but also an area where I could sharpen the chains on the chainsaws. But I decided that that probably wasn't strictly necessary and was a lot of additional work for not much return. So this is slightly temporary. I was kind of testing the theory, but seems to be working quite nicely. I've got my potting shed table down here at the moment. It's a little higher than I might like it, so I'm thinking what I might do, if it's possible, is dig it so that it's slightly buried, which I think might help as well, keep it stable. And this is the old storage from the potting shed. It did slightly collapse in transit and I've had to screw it together, not entirely successfully. It's very rotten, horrible wood. However, what I'm thinking I'm going to do here is buy a lockable metallic cupboard so that our chainsaws are still protected somewhat against being stolen. But rather than building an entire extra shed here, I'll just buy a bit of, spend a bit of money investing in a little cupboard. So that's my innovation here. I'm very pleased with that. And I did promise some garden newness, so just a quick update. I have here expanded the planting in front of the wood store. The intention of this is to have tallish evergreen shrubs, which also, if possible, have some sort of interest in that they have fragrant foliage or interesting foliage, but even better still that they have flowers which are pollinator attracting and bonus fragrant. So like this one and like this one. So this is a type of grevillea which apparently has flowers that are so fragrant it warns you on the label not to plant it too near a house. So we'll see. That sounds amazing. And this one that I can't remember the name of, it sort of looks like a cotoneaster, which I loathe cotoneaster. It isn't. I'll flash the name up. I do know it, I just don't remember it. So we now have 5 plants and maybe a little under halfway. I'm picking them up sort of ad hoc to kind of spread the financial burden. And eventually the hope is that this will be screened so it doesn't even really look that stark anyway because of the nature of the slope on the property. Right. And the fact that we deliberately made it so that it was relatively short. It's not that much of an eyesore, but nevertheless, a few plants will help soften it. And then, lastly, for this, I was also busily working away on the original flower bed, which, as my nan would say, had become a total disgrace, but now has been improved somewhat, weeded and manured. Quite a lot of these plants are sort of self-sown, and I've kind of left them. They're mostly the scabious, but also there's feverfew, which I think ended up in the compost, and when I put compost on the beds has ended up growing. And I've also noticed that this catmint is sort of sprouting up in places as well. I don't quite know how it's done that. I've added a foxglove, and I've added this little blue flower. The trouble that I have with small flowers is that they are the most vulnerable to getting munched by the wallabies. So it's always a bit of a hit and miss whether they will survive or not, but we'll see. And then I've also taken the precaution of fencing some of these plants. This is the Californian lilac, which I had in Scotland, and it was quite a thug of a plant. This great big bushy plant, thick, glossy, beautiful leaves covered in these lovely blue flowers, which are in turn covered with all sorts of different types of bees. Unfortunately, the wallabies love munching the leaves off of it, and we're slightly plagued with female wallabies at the moment, with youngsters in tow. I guess it's, you know, part of their cycle that they're really needing the energy now that they're probably more or less looking after two, a joey that's more or less large enough to be out of the pouch, and the next one in this never-ending chain of wallabies. Anyway, they munch on it like corn on the cob, and as a result the plant, I feel, has never done as well as it might. So I thought I didn't quite have enough to cage all of it, but I've at least caged this side of it, this half of it, and I'm hoping that what that will allow is for the leaves to regenerate and for this to start looking more like how it should. It worked quite successfully on this one over here, which is a similar sort of plant, or at least it was attacked by the wallabies in a very similar way. And that was quite an impressive looking plant, even though it's relatively young. But they just ate most of the leaves off it, so I caged it, and now it's regrowing. So that's good. And they also munched this one. You might be able to see where the leaves have been bitten off in places. This one in late summer, early autumn has a beautiful array of yellow flowers, but I'm worried that that sort of ruined it for this plant this year, being knocked back like that. So I've caged it. Hopefully, even if it doesn't do what it is capable of, it'll do better than it might have. So this is how the original flower bed is looking at the moment. Some of the French lavenders are coming into bloom, so that's quite nice. The mock oranges will be shortly. The aqualegias are starting to flower, and other things are sprouting up. So I'm quite pleased with how that's looking. And one last thing, there is a possibility this weekend that Will's going to be coming home with something, for him at least, that's quite exciting. I'm a bit more ambivalent about it. And in preparation for that, I have done a bit of a clear out of the potting shed, partly because I wanted to move stuff down to the wood store building, but also partly because I wanted to make space for this thing, which may or may not, but quite probably is coming on the weekend, which I will show you at some point if it does in fact turn up. As a side project, I've been working on the kitchen garden project. Quick recap if you don't know. Essentially what I'm doing is digging out a big section of this otherwise wasteland behind the house, and my intention is to put up a retaining wall and put in some raised beds where I can grow herbs and salad vegetables. As you may be able to see, this amount of the back of this part of the house, at least here, is soil, and this much is clay. And I've dug down to below the height of this lip because I want to put in gravel. Now, there was a massive thunderstorm which came through at about 1 o'clock in the morning today, and it dumped so much rain, it's basically filled that tank, which was more or less empty. So that's a large amount of rain. But it's also filled here. And I knew that was sort of going to happen. Obviously, this is clay. What I don't know what to do is what to do about it now. So I'm just mentioning this in case any of you have any ideas as to how I can combat this potential future problem, which doesn't involve installing a pump, because I don't know that I've got the skills, neither does my electricity situation possibly permit that. I think, like, even with a layer of gravel, this would be quite wet underfoot, not maybe so bad as it looks. And maybe it's not the end of the world, it will be quite a thick layer of gravel. What I am going to try now is stabbing it with my garden fork and see if that has any sort of effect. But if any of you have had this sort of problem and you've combated it in a way which doesn't involve any sort of electricity or a pump, please let me know, and I will be delighted to hear from you. I thought I'd update you with the fact that phase 1 of Operation Let's Get Ready for Bushfire Season is complete, in that I have gathered up all the leaves from around the house under these trees, and I have started to assemble a mammoth bonfire. And now I'm turning my attention to the second phase, which is interior to the fence in what I call the formal garden. And what that's going to involve is, particularly in this area, so the area that is under the big eucalyptus trees, is just to rake up all the debris which has accumulated on the lawns over winter, and under here, under the wisteria, which is a deciduous plant. So I'll rake all of those up. I don't tend to need to do anything in that area, so I'll just be going along, raking up all these sticks and leaves. And as you can see, as we get closer to the trees and the fence line, that material starts to get more and more. But because I'm going to be doing that, not only to clear it off the property, but also lawn mowing season is not that far away, I've decided that I'll also go up now and do the gutter, so that when I dump that debris onto the lawn won't already have been cleared, and then I'll have to do it twice. So this will be my last task for today, and then I'll carry on this work tomorrow in the hope that I can have my bonfire maybe on Monday, maybe on Tuesday. The final thing I'll want to do is just with some of these plants here, like the rhododendron and the camellia here, is look to maybe just lift them slightly higher off the ground, and also take the opportunity to give this a bit of a trim. It's slightly protruding further onto the lawn than I would like. That'll be the final material I add to the bonfire. Hi, Viti. Want to say hello? Good girl. And then we'll be good to go. I'm going to put Big Cat Conversations on because I find a spoonful of podcasts help the medicine go down. Vita's chasing the light on my phone, but if I turn around to show you, the light goes away. Anyway, it's very cute. You can probably hear the Big Cat Conversations podcast in the background, but just to show you what I'm up against. I have seen it worse, but I'll just try and get this stuff out, which is not really in the gutter, but adjacent to the gutter guard. which is what it's there for, and then call it a day. But it's always nice up on the roof, better when it's in the shade. It does get hot on the tin roof. Since I'm up on the roof, I thought I'd maybe show you a closer view of our solar panels. We've got 12 this side and 4 the other, something like that. As in 1, 2, 3, 4, not 1, 2, 3. So this is what they look like. I don't know if they benefit from being cleaned. I might do some research. They've been up for a while. I'm not too sure how I'd go about it if they are. I'm not as keen to monkey about on the roof as the people who installed them are capable of doing. I'm no steeplejack. I'm not that high off the ground and I'm not entirely enjoying it. But anyway, this is what they look like. This is where we get all of our power from. Pretty good this time of year. A little bit dubious come winter time, but obviously we're trying to see what we can do about that. No luck so far, but I'll keep you posted. I'll also keep you posted maybe if I do discover that they do benefit from cleaning and I give it a go. I'll talk you through that process based on what I discover. Anyway, that's all done. For now anyway, if it's looking like it's going to be a pretty lively bushfire season this summer, there's every good chance I'll be up here again just to keep on top of the situation. But we're done for now, so tomorrow I can focus my attention on raking up the lawns for, as I say, number 1, pre-bushfire preparation, and number 2, pre-lawn mowing preparation.